How are y'all doing? This is Ryan Jenkins of Crown by Nichelle Publishing here for another episode. I'm so excited. We are live on Instagram. Not Instagram yet, we're about to be. I always say Instagram first because I have to pop up on their page to click the button to go live. So we are live on Facebook, YouTube. I'm actually live on my iPad on TikTok. So I am really, really excited about today's episode. So if you're on Facebook or if you're on Instagram, please share and let people know about this episode. This is involving our health tonight, us being healthier and living better. So before we get into our guest tonight and into the episode, a few announcements of what's coming up with me. Number one, I need y'all to get y'all pre-orders in for this book, Reverse, my first preteen novel. For middle grades. I'm truly excited about this. We're definitely going to be ready to release on the 20th, if not earlier. So you want to get yours in by the 10th, your pre-order in. So if you go to my website, RyanNJenkins.com, you can definitely order you a copy of the book. It is a preteen love story between two best friends who are navigating adolescence and junior high together and their feelings for each other. And it's loosely based on my life. That there's some events that really happened in my life that happened in this book. So you please get your orders in. My goal is to sell 50. I'm at 16. So I need y'all to buy some books. Okay. I already told y'all about the Read Freely Fest. I just found out yesterday that we will not be there on the 28th. Matter of fact, they just have us being there on the 29th and the 30th. So the indie authors that are going to be featured are going to be there on the 29th and the 30th. And we will have a particular area in the library where you'll be able to come and check us out. And again, this is the main library downtown, and they're going to have other authors, other vendors. It's going to be a dope family fun event. So definitely come out. Our next podcast episode will be on Friday at 11 o'clock. It will be an author chat with Janae Marks. If you have not read her book, she is definitely a middle grades author. She actually donated books towards our All Black Author Book Drive. So please tune in. That will be at 11 a.m. on Friday. It will stream live. So if you have any questions, you want to talk to her about being an author or about her awesome books, please check her out. And again, her name is Janae Marks. Speaking of the All Black Author Book Drive, we are definitely we have shifted from book drive mode to giveaway mode. I am sitting across of my kitchen table. I have stacks on stacks of books that I would love to give away. So if you know about a community event where we can give these books away to our youth, again, I collect books by Black authors. I just received another donation today. Yesterday, last name is Collier. I don't know why I can't remember her first name, but she sent us 3 of her own personal books, which is super dope. So if you want to donate towards the cause or learn more about it, you can go to my website, click events, and you can learn more about it. Picture book, that next picture book that's coming out, Heaven's Jewel. I'm really excited. My illustrator just sent me some illustrations the other day. So we are definitely going to be launching that sometime in April. We don't have a definite date yet because she is a college girl. So I'm working with her schedule. So you have 3 books that's available to you. Really, you have 5. But the newest ones are Reverse, which will be out on the 20th. You have Heaven's Jewel that'll be out in the April, and then you have Blessing for the World, which is available now. So if you contact me, you can order it, or you can order it from Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and all that other good stuff. So our last episode that we had with Amber Blakes, we had on Sunday. You can stream that now actually on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, iHeart, Spotify. So all those places. After I'm done with the podcast, I upload the episode on there so you can listen to the audio. And that was a great, awesome episode where we're basically talking about how as mothers, we have more power within us than we realize when it comes to prayer and it comes to making sure that our kids are being their best selves that God has called them to be. It was a great discussion. It's still up on YouTube and Facebook, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm probably going to take it down tomorrow, but you can definitely still see it on YouTube. But you can definitely listen to it on those platforms. And that's any of my podcasts. If you type in Crown by Nichelle, you can go to those platforms and you can find them. Subscribe, add yourself as a follower. That'd be super dope. So tonight's episode, my guess, we go back to 95, 94, 95. We actually ran track together. And we really like, she was cool beans. So like, and then it's ironic that a lot of us knew each other too, not just we all went to school together, but a lot of teachers had kids around the same time. So it was a lot of us who our mothers taught together, Bates Middle School. And as a result, it was a lot of us who were all in the same grade. I know at least 10 of us. We were all in the same grade, and our parents all taught together at Bates. So she is, let me make sure I want to make sure I say this exactly right, the way it needs to be. So she is an occupational therapist, and she's a certified diabetes care education specialist. So I brought her on because I actually one night was going through her YouTube page, and the way she broke down carbs and sugar, I said, I need to bring her on because I really think we underestimate the power of sugar and what it does to our body and how we can really help deter the effects of sugar. So even though you are not diabetic or you are not pre-diabetic, yes, you could be labeled pre-diabetic, which means you're pretty close to being diabetic. I think you should listen to this, replay this with your family members, bring your family members on to talk and discuss and hear what she has to offer, because I think once we get this, we'll have a lot less people dealing with some health challenges they deal with because of sugar. But is there anything else you want to add to your introduction?
Nope. I think you did a good job, Ryan. Just like you said, we go way back.
Way back.
I would say our paths right now are really similar in being entrepreneurs, in being authors. I recently wrote a book, Type 2 Diabetes for Beginners. That's on Amazon as well. And so I think you did a good job. So I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. So, and I'm going to pull up her presentation and we're going to go through the different points. But again, I love how she says she brings personalized diabetes management and age well services directly where people live, gather, and empowering. And this is kind of me jumping ahead of the presentation. But what caused, number one, what caused you to be in this particular area? What drove you to do this?
So for me, as an occupational therapist, I worked on an inpatient rehab unit. Well, I worked in rehab first because I'm from Sumter, South Carolina. I worked at the outpatient medical center there. And that was probably my first encounter with patients that had diabetes. And then fast forward to years later, I moved to the DC area. I was working in an inpatient rehab unit. And a lot of my clients at the time, they had diabetes. And so I wanted to understand more about it. And a lot of my clients at the time, they also had strokes or heart attacks. And I was like, what is going on with this diabetes? And so that was me being a new occupational therapist and just really wanting to understand. And what I found was that it didn't matter, education level. I had someone who could be a farmer with no education to perhaps someone who I remember who was a graduate of Stanford University. And when it came to diabetes, it was the same thing because both of them were sitting there in front of me as a result of diabetes that was not managed with lower limb amputations. And I just wanted to know, how can I help? How can I help these people understand the significance and the impact of diabetes? And so I got interested in, desire to be able to help my patients that were on rehab be able to just prevent these complications so other people didn't lose limbs or didn't have heart attacks or didn't have strokes. And so that's kind of where my passion for diabetes education was born. And I discovered that I love educating people. And I also discovered that for me, once someone knows what to do, they can do it and manage it, and it doesn't have to result in that.
And while you're speaking, I'm typing in your information so they can look you up, your website. So I love that, and I'll never forget. And again, I can be all over the place on my interview, but I will never get watching an episode of it was a Black News Network on BET. I can't remember the name of it, but basically they were interviewing a doctor. I want to say he was either in Mississippi or Alabama area, and it was a lot of people who were told they had to amputated when they really didn't have to. But it was a way, even though they were struggling with diabetes, he felt like if he would have caught them earlier, they wouldn't have to get to that point. But also, it was also fraud on their point, on their end, where they were just trying to get the Medicaid costs behind it. So it just really opened my eyes to some things, and it just made me really it's so much more that people need to learn as far as their diets are concerned. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So she said, how many people were diagnosed with diabetes in 2021? And I wonder if anyone who's watching, if you want to put in the comments, I'm going back and forth between Facebook and Instagram. If anyone wants to guess how many people were diagnosed with diabetes in 2021. No takers, no guessers. Okay. I'm going to guess the high number.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna go because you know what? The key word is diagnosed, though. That's the key word, because you don't know you have it until you go to the doctor and have the physical we're supposed to have once a year. So Keisha, I'm overdue. I need to do better. So diagnosis is the key word. So I'm gonna go with 15 million.
You're going to go with 15 million. Okay. And you know what? And the question, now that I'm looking at my slide, and I shouldn't say diagnosed because, actually it's over 38 million people that are diagnosed with diabetes. But many of those people, they don't even know that they have it. They go undiagnosed. They don't know they have it. But actually it's a high number, that around 38 million people have diabetes in the United States. It's like 37.6 million. So the numbers are really, really high. And so again, that's why for me, I'm like, hey, we need to do something about this to be able to prevent this, because this doesn't have to happen. And it's a lot of education that's involved, but education can happen and we can prevent some of this.
Oh my gosh. So again, and let me, because I'm still flabbergasted. So even with the diagnosis, we're still looking at 38, and there are certain people that don't even know.
Yeah, and certain people don't even have a clue that they're walking around with diabetes. And the thing is, sometimes people don't know they have diabetes until, they start to have symptoms where maybe they have some frequent urination, they get sick and they end up in the hospital, and then they end up in the hospital and it's like, hey, you got this diagnosis of diabetes and your blood sugars are really elevated. And most people don't even know. And especially, and I'm glad you say, Ryan, I'm not picking on you, but I'm glad you're saying you got to go to the doctor soon, because that's another thing. A lot of people, and this recently was an experience that I had. A lot of people, because there is a shortage of primary care physicians. And I moved from the DC area to North Carolina. And my experience was it took me almost 2 years to get an appointment with the doctor. And it ended up going to see a nurse practitioner, and someone that I was at a conference, they used the term medically homeless. But so many people are medically homeless.
Wow.
They don't have a physician because there's not enough physicians, or you can't get an appointment because providers aren't taking new patients. So it was almost 2 years, and I recently went in January, and I had to get my lab work done. And so if you're thinking it's people in similar experience as me, or you're waiting on insurance, or you don't have insurance, you're not going to the doctor regular, so you don't know that you even have diabetes. And so that's a real big problem.
And I didn't even realize that was the case. I I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And I guess because I have a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
that I guess when you have certain things, you don't realize what's out there. And then one thing I also realized too, a show that I binged on heavy was The Resident. Have you ever seen that?
I've seen it maybe once or twice. I don't watch that much TV.
Yeah, I don't usually watch TV like in real time. If I find it on YouTube, I will binge it hard. So it's one of those shows. It showed the good and the bad of medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And it really did reveal some things as far as like the difference between having a public funded hospital and a privately. I didn't know that existed. I knew that it was with education, but I didn't realize that was the case with hospitals. And it just really opened your eyes. Even though it was a fictional show, I know they were taking real life scenarios, almost like a Law and Order, but it was medically. And just it was some episodes that really had me thinking, even to the point my mom, given the amount of medication she takes, I asked her, I said, does every doctor know what medicines you are currently taking? And I asked her that because there was an episode where someone sadly passed away because they went into surgery and they didn't, all this medication she was taking was detrimental to her, and none of the doctors knew about the other stuff. So it was an eye opener, but it also shows you the bad side of the medical field. That
And
yeah.
you know what? When you talk about medicine, because you're saying that and you talk about the episode, something that I always tell people is, when it comes to healthcare, we have to be our own best advocate. And so, we all may have, parents that are older, that are aging, even in
Mhm.
ourselves. And so it's important when you take medication, you write that medication down, you write your allergies down. You keep that in an envelope in your handbag or whatever's on your person,
Mhm.
in the event something like that does happen, because we have to be able to speak up for ourselves, because in healthcare now it's very fast paced. It's a lot of hands in the pot when you go into a healthcare facility or into a hospital. So I encourage everyone, speak up for yourself when it comes to your own health.
Yeah, and I definitely like I remember at one point when I was under a lot of medication at one point, I kept a list on my phone or I would take pictures like in my notes so that way because I know my mom, she just because there were sometimes I had to go to the doctor with her or emergency room with her. She just carried the whole bag. So just making sure people know exactly what you're taking. So again, if you are definitely loving what you're hearing here, you can follow her at live at Weldom, and then email her info@liveweldom.com. And I realize I'm writing stuff wrong, so I'm gonna fix that in a second. The word I put too many words in there, and it's breaking them up. So, and then she's on YouTube too. So let's go to the next slide.
So I think I probably covered some of this. I don't know why my slides are looking a little off, y'all, but I don't know. But that's okay. It might be because we're on the StreamYard. I don't know. But for me, again, like I addressed this, is that diabetes really is a public health concern because there are so many people that have diabetes. And then we talked about diabetes, over 38 million people have diabetes. But there's like another 98 million people that fall in the category of having pre-diabetes. So you might hear it being called impaired fasting glucose, but it's pre-diabetes. So that's a problem. And it was a statistic that I read recently. And pretty much it said that every 17 seconds, someone is diagnosed with diabetes. And, that's like, wow. So if I could see the audience or the people out there, I would ask you, raise your hand if you know someone that has diabetes. And most all of us, if it was a room and we were in it, a hand would go up because we know people that have diabetes. And where we are in the southern region of the United States, it's I remember when I was in college, I did a little research paper on this. And, we're known for the stroke. It's called the stroke belt, of the United States. But it's also called the diabetes belt. And in states like North Carolina, South Carolina, I think it's like Georgia, Mississippi, we're in what we call the buckle of the belt. So that's the part
Wow.
of the United States where there is a great incidence of diabetes. And so we can do something about it. And I know we live in a culture, and somebody might get mad at me when I say it, but we live in this big bad culture where, it's food that looks so good on, Instagram and on Facebook, and you like, ooh, we got to go try that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've gotten into the habit of, putting so much emphasis on food and, who can make it the best. And so I want to take that same passion and show that we can still have good food and
Mm-hmm.
decrease some of the sugar and the fat that we have in food. And we can make a change in the way we do things for, healthier outcome overall. Okay. Because when you think about diabetes is the 8th leading cause of death in the United States. And so that's really a big thing. And so I always say, hey, if we can prevent complications from happening, I want to prevent them, because diabetes is a disease that, you can self-manage. We call it,
Mm-hmm.
self-management for diabetes education. And so you can do something about it so complications don't have to happen. Whereas some other diseases, you can't do anything about it. But
Mm-hmm.
diabetes is one, when you start to change your lifestyle and implement some different strategies, you really can make improvements in your overall health.
Okay. So again, those of you on TikTok, she is liveweldom.com. And then you can find her as I am Keisha Lewis on YouTube, or you can follow on social media at liveweldom.com. One thing I want to emphasize is I like how you said there's some diseases, once you have it, you have it. I'll never forget, we had a health challenge in our church, and one of the young ladies, they gave her honorable mention because she was at levels of being pre-diabetic or something of that nature, but because she was doing some of the things, the challenges we had, like it was like walking, and they had, they were doing weigh-ins, and they were watching, they had classes with, I think virtually, they have to talk about their diet and whatnot, and her numbers came drastically down. So and then I remember my bishop, my pastor, he admitted they told him he was diabetic, because and how it was, he overlooked getting a physical, but he wanted to get new life insurance. And whenever you get a certain type of life insurance, you have to get a physical. And when he got it, he was told he was diabetic. And immediately he said, from lifestyle changes to making sure he worked out, watching his diet, he said he's never been a salad salmon guy. But he was like, he said, I didn't want to be that person where you see people lose limbs and see people go blind. Like, he took it seriously. And I think that's the part that it balances, and it depends on the person. How bad do you really want it? Because I've seen episodes, not just episodes from The Resident, but people in real life, you're diabetic and you're still eating things you should not be eating. So hopefully we will get into, hopefully you will learn from Keisha some things you can do to help. And it's not saying you can't eat good. It's just you have to balance it. And some of you, it's just you have to interpret what good is for you. You have to change the meaning of that.
Right. And look, so I'm going to say this because I don't want anybody, because I always say this when it comes to food. So I want you to eat food. I love food, and I love good food. So don't get me wrong. But what I'm going to say to you is it's all about balance. It's all about portion control and how we put things together. Because when it comes to diabetes, and I think I did a YouTube episode on this, there's over 42 different factors that can impact your blood sugars. And so I did food is just one. So, I thought about, 90s rap music song, you got 99 problems, right? But no, but with diabetes, it's like 42 other factors that affect your blood sugar. And it could be anything from sleep to exercise to you going hiking. But food is a component. But a lot of times we settle on food as being the problem when it comes to diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, because I just recently, like, I don't have diabetes, but I have high blood pressure. And
Mm-hmm.
so I recently, I was doing a spiritual fast with church. And so I did the Daniel fast. And so for 40 days, I really changed the way that I was eating. And I took an approach, and I was doing more of a plant-based meal pattern. But remember, I told you I like food. So
Mm-hmm.
because I was doing a plant-based meal pattern, I had to find different recipes and use different spices, because I do have high blood pressure, to change the taste of things. And so I learned a lot during this time. During this time, my blood pressure was really well managed. And so it's just being creative, because I want you to still be able to enjoy food,
Mm-hmm.
um, enjoy the simple things in life, and that's one of them. So that's just one component,
Mm-hmm.
in just trying to manage your diabetes.
So we're gonna go to the next slide, and I think it may be the Google Slides, and it's weird. The formatting is
Yeah,
weird.
that's what I think, but that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. But for this one, it's a QR code that
Mm-hmm.
you can actually, if you scan it, it'll take you to the American Diabetes Association site, where you can do a 60-second little quiz to see if you are at risk for diabetes. And so I would encourage you, and while it's on here, and I'm talking slow so you can scan it, and go on there and assess your own risk. And if you identify yourself as being at risk, I want you to follow up with your doctor and have a conversation about it. I want to make sure it works, because Ryan just did that. So I'm pulling out my phone, make sure my QR code
No,
is.
it was not. I think it's my camera angle. So I
Okay.
I was trying to show TikTok. Let me see
Oh,
if I can.
that's okay. But you can't see it here because my light, but it's a 60-second type 2 diabetes risk test. And you can take it for yourself, or you can take it for someone else. But at the end, it will give you a score. And so if you have been identified as being at risk, I want you to follow up with your doctor, so you can get your labs tested, so you can see what really is going on and what your numbers are. So the doctor will either do a fasting blood sugar test, or the doctor will do a hemoglobin A1C test to measure, is your hemoglobin A1C out of normal range, or is your fasting blood sugar elevated? And so I would definitely encourage you all to take that, so you know what your risks are moving forward. Because like Ryan mentioned, with her bishop and some other people, once you start to implement lifestyle changes, you can really make a difference. And some of those lifestyle changes, which I have on another slide as a little snippet, but and we'll get there. But small things like exercising, changing the way that you're eating, those are all things that help and can reduce your risk.
Mm-hmm.
So this was another slide. Ryan, I hear a little bit of an echo, but hopefully we're okay.
No,
Um,
we're good.
okay. So with the diabetes risk factors, I put that, you did the 60-second assessment, but some other risk factors, just to help you if you don't go on and you don't do the risk assessment. But if you have a history of where you're overweight, if you have abdominal obesity, and it's listed there, if you are a man and that waist circumference, so that belly is over 40 inches, or in women it's over 35 inches, that all puts you more at risk. If you have periods where you don't exercise, so physical inactivity, I always tell people, I exercise at least 3 to 5 times a week. And if I could do it by osmosis, I would, because I don't like to exercise. But I have to for my blood pressure. So I exercise. But if you're not active, if you're not physically active, that puts you at risk for diabetes. If you have a history of smoking, that increases your risk, as well as family history. So genetics plays a big part in diabetes, in type 1 and type 2 diabetes, actually. And then your age. So if you're over the age of 45, you're more at risk for developing type 2 diabetes. And then certain ethnic groups. So those of us that have more melanated skin, we're more at risk for developing type 2 diabetes. And then women that have had gestational diabetes, or you delivered a baby weighing more than 9 pounds, you're at greater risk of type 2 diabetes. And then any of us that have abnormal cholesterol or blood pressure readings, we're also at risk. So if I says something and you say, hey, that's me, or 2 or 3 or more of these things is me, then that's another reason to go ahead and tell your doctor, I want to get screened. I have some of these risk factors. I have a strong family history of diabetes. I need to go ahead and see what my A1C is. So, again, advocating for yourself.
And I definitely see some areas where I need to do better. And then I remember my mom, which I never understood, when I want to gain weight, it doesn't go where I want it to go. And one of the places it definitely goes is my stomach. So, and I remember my mom bringing it up, but she was connecting it to, heart disease and high blood pressure, which that's another issue in our family. But I didn't know it was connected to diabetes. So yeah, that's good to know. So, and then it's just a matter of, it really, again, it's really important, y'all, to know to get, if you can get a doctor, even you have to see a nurse practitioner, because matter of fact, the person who I'm thinking about switching to, they admitted to me she is a nurse practitioner, but she's very thorough and she's very good. And it's just, you got, the physical is the number one helper. You have to find out what your numbers are, where do you stand, because again, you can't just assume and just wish it away and pray it away if you don't know what actually the numbers are and what they look like. And like she said, you can reverse these numbers by doing certain things. And here we go.
All right, so I'm going to talk about self-care behaviors to promote change. And so in the world of diabetes, because people often ask me this before I even get into the self-care behaviors, but people often ask, can I reverse diabetes? I seen, the show, and a popular show back in the day was The Biggest Loser, and people would be like, I saw that they got rid of diabetes. So in the diabetes world, the word we use is remission. So diabetes remission. And so you can go into remission implementing some of these healthy lifestyle changes. And remission is when your A1C is consistently below like 6.5. You could go into remission. Okay. So that's important, and that's a goal to work towards, but you have to do something. And so I always go back to The Biggest Loser. I always used to tell people, they had drastic changes. They had a chef cooking their food. They were exercising what seemed like all day, every day. And so they had these personal trainers. And so they lived on a farm. And they were isolated. So they made these drastic changes. And with these drastic changes, they lost weight. Their blood pressure might have gone normal, their cholesterol, their blood sugars. And so they were saying, hey, I got rid of diabetes. No, you didn't get rid of diabetes. What happened was you made all of these drastic changes. And so your numbers went into a range where they were, quote unquote, normal again. But I always tell people, if you stop doing that at that level of intensity, your numbers will slowly go back up. So for me, it's finding and using these lifestyle changes that you can maintain, not stuff that you just do, hardcore for 3 to 6 months, and then 3 to 6 months you go back to normal habits. So it's about finding a balance that works for you. So I just kind of did some quick points about the 7 areas that we think about with diabetes self-management or diabetes education that we can change these behaviors. So first thing there is healthy eating. And so what that might look like is you're promoting healthy food choices. So, a balanced, meal that you're looking at, making sure we're not overpiling our plate, making sure, we have food looking like, the colors of the rainbow. We got, our protein on there, whether it's animal-based or plant-based. We have our those non-starchy vegetables like kale, collards, broccoli, all that color. And then, maybe we do something like a whole grain rice or pasta or sweet potato. That's on that plate too. So a part of that, and I'm saying things because I can't get into everything in an hour conversation here, but it's important that if you do have pre-diabetes or you have diabetes, that you learn about carbohydrate counting and you learn about portion control. Because like we talked about, food is an impact, and carbohydrates are a type of food that impact your blood sugars, but that doesn't mean you can't have them. So just learning, what healthy eating looks like and who do I talk to, whether it be someone like me who's a certified diabetes care and education specialist, or whether you make an appointment with someone who's a registered dietitian to talk about what that looks like. And then the other thing is being active. So trying to make sure you get in some physical activity. So at least 30 minutes of physical activity, working that into your daily routine. What the American College of Sports Medicine and the Center for Disease Control, they recommend at least 100 minutes of physical activity a week. And so for you, that might mean, hey, you break that up into 30 minutes, 5 days a week. It might mean you break it up into smaller increments. There's a lot of research now that even shows anywhere from 150 minutes to 300 minutes might benefit us more, but just small things. And so I always tell my clients, if you haven't been exercising, don't go out and just start full force. Make sure, your heart is okay and you can actually exercise. But I always tell people, even if you break it up and you like, oh, Keisha, I can't walk, 30 minutes all at one time. Then I tell you, you know what? Walk 10 minutes after breakfast, 10 minutes after lunch, and 10 minutes after dinner. And if you did that every day, you'd have 30 minutes. And you do that every day because we eat every day. You have your 150 minutes of activity. And it's going to have some benefit because you are moving. When you do something consistently, you're going to get more cardiovascular benefit. But that 10 minutes, breaking it up, that's more than, not doing anything at all. So go for it. The other thing with self-management or self-care behaviors with diabetes is developing healthy coping strategies. So having diabetes or any other kind of chronic illness, it can be stressful. And so you got to work on how do you manage your stress? What are your coping strategies that you deal with? Do you need to talk to somebody? Do you need to talk to your healthcare provider? Because sometimes family and friends, they ain't it. You need to talk to somebody. And so if you do, that's fine. And talk to someone and identify that person, your mental health professionals that can help you with healthy coping strategies for your health and your mental well-being as well. And then you got problem solving. So for problem solving, I always tell people that's a part of, learning strategies to take your blood sugars, learning strategies for meal prep. Because some people are like, I don't have time to cook. I don't want to test my blood sugars. What can we do? So together, that's something we work on. It's problem solving what works for you, because it's not about what I want. It's about what you want and what you're willing to change and implement. So we got to problem solve together. And can you move to the next slide, Ryan? Because then I think I'm going to wrap those points up. Okay. So then the other thing is your risk reduction. And so you might be like, what's risk reduction? Well, that right there is being able to participate in education. So you reduce your risk of complications. Or it can simply be, participating in those annual screening examinations. Like we said, getting your cholesterol checked, getting your A1C checked, getting your blood pressure checked. Those are all things to reduce the risk of developing complications or things like heart attack or stroke. So that's risk reduction. And then the other thing is monitoring. So not everyone with diabetes has to monitor their blood sugars, but if you do, If the doctor has suggested that to you, then you want to make sure that you monitor your blood sugar, whether that's with a traditional glucose monitor or whether that is with the continuous glucose monitor, and you might see them on the back of someone's arm. That's another option. And then the other thing there is taking the medication. So if you have diabetes and your doctor has prescribed you to take medication, then take that medication as prescribed. And not only diabetes, if you have, I'm going to say, high blood pressure and you have medication, take your medication as prescribed, because that will help you reduce your risk of other things happening to you. And so those areas are actually what we call the diabetes self-care, or the 7 areas of behavior change for diabetes self-management. And so it really does. It takes all of those different behaviors that I mentioned or just talked about to implement change to decrease your risk of complications and to work towards the goal. If diabetes remission is your goal, all of those things have to happen, and those things have to happen consistently.
Mm-hmm. And I'll admit, I started back walking. That is my workout. I don't, like, a lot of people talk about joining the gym. You do what you do. I mean, even though I was a former athlete, I know what my body can and cannot tolerate. So I used to join the gym, wasn't consistent, but I figured walking around my neighborhood, and then on my off days that I'm not walking, I just try to do some type of weights, whether it's the kettlebells or the resistance strand that you use to do certain things. So find what works for you, whether it's finding also a crew you can work out with, an accountability partner, something that's going to help you stay on it. Because I realize part of the issue with a lot of us is we're not active enough too. We have very sedentary lifestyles. Mm-hmm. And we have to get moving. And it is, for some reason, for a long time, I think also a misconception, I was thinking about this the other day, I think we associate exercise with losing weight, when the reality is exercise makes our body better, period. It's not about losing the weight. Mm-hmm. It's about, I want my heart to be healthier. I just want everything to be healthier body-wise. It's not necessarily you're trying to lose weight. So I love all these strategies, and the fact that, again, I love how you broke it down, because even I forgot about that show, The Biggest Loser. They did go to very extreme lengths to lose all that weight. And I even thought about how when I was in the hospital years ago, I remember telling my mom that was the lowest weight I had been at in a very long time, because they made sure I couldn't eat certain stuff. They knew I think my blood sugar did shoot up while I was in the hospital, so I couldn't eat. I had a very restricted diet while I was in the hospital. So when I left and was on my own and I gained that weight back, I'm like, oh my gosh, you did. And I'm like, I didn't really take the time to learn what and what not to eat. And that's another thing. Do the research and look up, okay, I really like this. I can do this. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. I did not look at all of your slides, but I have a question about the whole sugar substitute.
Okay.
And I heard about the monk fruit. It's monk fruit I heard about, and then sugar substitutes. Is that really, or you hear stuff like saying that it's sugar free, but it's obviously some type of sweetener added to it because it's very sweet. So how do y'all feel about that, and how does that work for our bodies?
So this is what I'm going to say. I'm going to tell you how Keisha feel, and then I'm going to tell you I guess some scientific stuff. Mm-hmm. So for me, I always tell people it's going to be a matter of your personal preference if you use sugar substitutes or non-nutritive sweeteners. I don't like the way they taste. So for me, I don't use any sugar. And I know some people want sugar, so I just don't like the way it tastes. So I just don't use it. Mm-hmm. But if you want a non-nutritive sweetener, sugar substitute, so you got like your monk fruit, your stevia, your Splenda, your Sweet and Low, all of those things that either have maybe aspartame or sucralose, those are all things that you can use to sweeten coffee. You can use to sweeten different things. And those things don't have sugar.
Okay.
There's some research out there that sometimes, because they're like 100 times sweeter than regular sugar. But they're not sugar. So they're not going to impact your blood sugar in the same way. But what I was going to say was there are some studies out there that say sometimes your brain is tricked into believing that it's having sugar because they are so sweet. But sugar substitutes, they're safe. The FDA has said that they're safe. You can use them. But for me, it's a matter of what your preference is. But I don't want you, sweetening your coffee with, 2 tablespoons of sugar, because those things add up. And, those things are going to impact your blood sugar. So I would rather you use a sugar substitute if you have to have a sweetener in your coffee or your tea. The other thing you said if something says it's sugar-free, is it sugar-free? So I always tell people, in the world of diabetes, we look at carbohydrates because carbohydrates impact your blood sugars. Gotcha. So just because something, and I tell my mom this too all the time, just because something says that it's sugar-free, it doesn't mean that it's carbohydrate-free. So it might be something, and I think about these baked goods like cookies, or even sometimes you'll see ice cream and it'll say it's sugar-free. But just because it's sugar-free doesn't have any added sugar, it's not carbohydrate-free. And so if you eat those things and you eat those things in excess, it's going to raise your blood sugars. Okay. And then I'm going to go back to something you said too, because I want to hit what you said about exercise and physical activity. So I'm going back. So come back to me about the food. Okay. But Ryan said something that I've been saying for years for people, when it comes to physical activity, find something that you enjoy doing. And physical activity in the sense of exercise, we think about physical activity and then we think about exercise. Well, physical activity, any movement is considered physical activity.
Exactly.
Right. But exercise is specific types of activity, like running, walking, strength training. And so I always tell people, even if you get up and move and dance in your house, vacuum, clean your house, that's some form of activity. So I want you to do it. But joining the gym isn't for everybody. And so people have this misconception, like Ryan said, that I got to join the gym to, exercise. And you don't. Like, I am physically fit. I am. And I exercise 3 to 5 times a week. And you know where I do it at? In my little space in my house. I watch a YouTube video and I turn it on and I exercise. And there are tons of videos on YouTube that you can participate in. Right now, I have my mom and my aunt doing, it's a walking video. And, it's called Get Fit with Rick. And so they do it to count steps, and they walk in the living room or they walk in the house. And it's a great workout. So find something that works for you. You don't have to have money to join a gym because you can do it at home. When it gets warmer, you can walk outside. There's tons of stuff that you can do to keep yourself active without spending a ton of money or buying all this expensive equipment. You don't need to do that. Just walk.
Yeah. And again, find something. I like how I emphasize, find what works for you, because what you don't want to do is find yourself doing something and you hate it. Like, I'll never forget when I did a cycling class. I did that one time. Granted, I was at Gold's Gym and I was just trying to do different stuff. And I realized, no, ma'am, no, this is not comfortable. Even though I know it was a great workout, it was not comfortable. Step aerobics, my coordination is not what it used to be. So I refuse to bust my butt. So I fell in love with those walking videos. There's 2 other young ladies I used to follow on social media, on YouTube. And some of them are walking videos, but some of them, they say walking videos, but it's straight a workout. But when I say it's the best feeling in the world, and they let you know by the end of this workout, you should have so many steps. Some of them is 5,000, 10,000 steps. And some of those videos are as short as 10 minutes. Like, you're stopping in between your lunch break to get a workout in, and they let you know, okay, you can do this in between your lunch break. So when I say there are countless videos on YouTube, that is free. I actually have my brother cousin install a TV in my garage, because if it's raining outside or if it's too cold, I can go in my garage and work out to something on YouTube. So the YouTube Workout University is the bomb. I strongly endorse that. So
And so what I have here is some resources, and I realize you might, take a picture because you can't copy the link, but I did 2 resources, and my website currently is under construction. So check back often and you'll see the new website launch. But these are just some free resources that I have. One is called Curbing the Cravings. It's for snacks. And I gave you some different options for some healthier snacks. I know a lot of times what drove me to do this was one of my clients was talking to me about snacks in their house. And so I struggled when I created this, because I have some healthier snack options that are going to cause you to think outside the box. But I created one that has those snack options that, we might want. And so instead of having a large size Snicker bar, I might say, okay, do the fun size Snicker bar. But on this Curbing the Cravings snack guide, I have stuff like popcorn, olives, hummus, veggie sticks, apples and peanut butter, maybe yogurt and berries. And so those are, again, I even got sardines on the list. And like I said on one of my YouTube videos, don't knock it till you try it, because sardines are a good snack and they have a lot of protein. But just some things to think outside of the box when it comes to snacking. And then Cut Through the Noise, Your Guide to Diabetes Truth. It just goes through some myths and facts about diabetes and diabetes-related complications. And so just something that you can download, you can read, just information for you. Because one of the things that I'm trying to do is, for me, with diabetes education, I know that not everyone that needs education is receiving education. Whether that is, it's not being offered to you because your medical provider hasn't offered it to you. Whether you feel like, hey, it's not affordable with my insurance plan. And so my goal is to be able to bring education out there to you that, it's not, the same as maybe meeting one-on-one with me, but it is things that you can use and tools that you can use to be informed when it comes to diabetes. And I always say, don't let maybe not having, some of us have high insurance deductibles, me included. So, don't let that stop you from not seeking out education, because there's a ton of resources out there. And I know with a ton of resources, it can be information overload, but education is out there. Do not let that stop you from, seeking that education, so these complications of diabetes occur. So that's one of the things why I create the YouTube channel and some of these resources, is because I want to get the information out to you. So check those 2 resources out, and I'll have some more resources coming. It's just, I have a lot of things in my head sometimes, and yeah, I got to get it out. So just follow me, like Ryan said. Follow me on social media and go to my website and look for new stuff that does come out. So
now, I had a question on Instagram. Someone asked, and thank you for your question, teaching oneself. It says, what about using dates as a sweetener?
So I've used dates before as a sweetener, but dates, they're natural and they still have carbohydrates in them. So you would still have to, monitor. I think maybe 3 tablespoonfuls of dates has about 30 grams of carbs. I can't really remember, but you still would have to count it. So the dates are going to be a little bit better than your refined white sugar, but they're still going to have an impact on your blood sugar. But I always tell people, if it's a recipe, try it out. And if you have diabetes and you have the ability to check your blood sugars, after you try that recipe out, then check your blood sugars, 1 to 2 hours after, and see the impact of those dates on your blood sugars. Because when you think about it with the dates, especially if you're using dates to make like a date paste, what happens is, that paste is distributed out the whole recipe. So I always say just give it a try, because it is a healthier option because you're getting more fiber from the dates as well. So give it a try and see.
That's something I'm realizing there's more food choices that I've never considered before. And I've never thought about using dates before, but I definitely I'm trying to expand my food horizon. And because we have some time left, and if anyone has any questions, definitely put it in the chat or on Facebook and Instagram. What are some fruits that we underestimate the amount of carbs and sugar that it has?
Okay, so with that one, so this is what I always say about fruit. So, fruit is good for you. It's nutritious. You get a lot of fiber. But when someone has diabetes, you can't eat endless amounts of fruit. And so a big one that I always was two. One is the banana. So a banana, it can be sneaky for the blood sugars, because the riper a banana gets, it can be a little bit sweeter. But bananas seem to increase blood sugars quite a bit. So sometimes you might realize you can only eat half a banana. You can't eat the whole thing. So get one of those little banana savers and wrap it up. Another one is grapes. Most people don't realize, but a true serving of grapes is about 17 grapes. So that's not much, because, we could eat a whole bag of grapes, little sandwich bag full. So when it comes to fruit, I always say, get fruit that are in a bag. And I always think of apples. So I always get a bag of apples, because the apples in a bag are a lot smaller than the apples that you get from the individual produce section. Another thing that I would say to try is berries. So any of your berries, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, your blackberries even, you can have more of those. You get more bang for your buck. So a serving of berries, is about a cup of berries. So that's going to be a whole lot more than a serving of like melon, whether it be watermelon or whether it be cantaloupe. Because, we cut those up into bigger pieces and chunks, and we can't have as much. But those melons can sneak up on you too, watermelon and even cantaloupe. So you just have to be mindful of the serving size that you eat. Another small fruit I always say is mandarins. You can have about 2 mandarins. And so it kind of tricks you into thinking you're eating a little bit more, but a smaller option.
That's good to hear, because I remember, and every now and again, my mom will have something around, and she'll admit, "Oh, I can't have it so much because I would shoot my sugar up." And I remember grapes is one of those things that she said, which makes me sometimes wonder, like even Chick-fil-A, depending on the season, it's a whole bunch of grapes in there. They don't put as many blueberries in there, and I understand because it's probably a cheaper fruit. But it's predominantly apple slices and grapes, and they may throw some blackberries or blueberries or strawberries in there. But yeah, I always wondered about that. So, oh my gosh.
And this is just Ryan put up the YouTube channel, but I was just saying, if you're out there, you're watching, subscribe to my YouTube. I started out posting something every Wednesday, but now I'm about every other Wednesday. There's a new episode on my channel. And I always tell people it's various topics related to diabetes. And also because me being an occupational therapist, some of those topics may be related to, being safe at home, aging well at home with diabetes. And so what you'll see now is most of those topics are related to diabetes. So I would encourage you to go and check some of them out and add comments, and I'll respond back to you. But I think the big takeaway for me, and I want you all to take away, and our time is about to run out, but managing diabetes is something that you can do, and you have the tools to do it. And also, I want you to seek out education if you feel like you need support.
Mm-hmm. And I was hoping we would have some more questions, but I greatly appreciate it. There's definitely going to be a part 2 because I feel like we barely scratched the surface because there's so much information out there about this. So I really hope if you did not get a chance to watch this in real time, if you're watching this in the replay, because this will be up on Instagram and on Facebook for the next 24 hours, please comment replay to let us know that you're watching it. And then it will forever be on YouTube, and it will forever, once we log off here, I will download it and upload it on Spotify. Listen to it with your family members, but definitely please follow her on YouTube. Because when I say, and granted, it was one video, but that really, and that's one thing I told my mom I'm being more cognizant on, and where I know I've lost, I feel like, a significant amount of weight. And part of it was due to my portion control. Like, I don't have to eat everything that the restaurant gives me. I can half the portion and save the rest for later. That's why I told somebody I don't want to use the word hate, but I get very disgruntled when I have to go out to eat with my son, who was a growing boy, who will eat his whole meal and be like, what are we going to eat later on? Dude, I'm still eating. Like, what are you doing? So it's just one of those things where you have to be very cognizant about your portion control. And let's be honest, y'all, if we're being honest, our body tells us you've had enough. Some of us are tapped into that gluttonous spirit where we feel like we got to eat all of it. And some of it is emotional eating. Some of it is we were told when we were older about being part of the clean plate club, or you couldn't leave the table till you finish everything on your plate. So I think some of that sometimes factors into why we feel a need to eat all this stuff, and we don't have to eat all of it. We can save some of it for later, but definitely subscribe to her. And you can reach out to her again. You can find her again. The name of the website is liveweldom.com. You can email her at info@liveweldom, LWELL dumb.com, and then she's on YouTube under I Am Keisha Lewis. So I greatly appreciate you coming on tonight. Don't log off, don't go anywhere. But y'all, I greatly appreciate y'all coming on again. We will have our next episode will be this Friday. Let me put that up real quick. It will be this Friday at 11 a.m. I know some people always ask me, Ryan, when do you have your podcast? I don't have a set time and date. I would love to have one, but I believe in accommodating my guests. So whenever my guests can come on, that's when I meet them, and I give them a time period, and they give me a time that works for them, and I accommodate them. So that's why, if you notice, I had literally 3 podcast episodes this week, and we probably won't have any for a while, based on my schedule. But Janae Marks will be here on Friday. She is an author. She's a middle grades author. So if you teach middle school, you definitely want to check her out. And check out her books. We're going to talk about her books and her author journey. But I greatly appreciate y'all coming on, and y'all have a good night. Okay.